Hi everyone, this is HM&S video number 62 and you are most welcome for it. Not every dataset is a proper dataset. That's why today we are going to look at 8 points that you need to check to make sure that your dataset is a proper dataset. Now, why do we need a proper dataset? A proper dataset is important because it makes your data analysis work like 10 times easier. Also, there are certain data analysis tools that do not accept a dataset if it's not a proper dataset. Like for example, if you do not have a proper dataset, you cannot import that dataset into Power Query or Power Pivot or even Power BI Desktop. Those data analysis tools will not accept any dataset if it's not a proper dataset. So let's switch on to Excel and we dive deep into how to set our dataset properly. A proper dataset is sometimes called a table. Now, before we talk about a proper dataset, let's talk about what makes up a dataset. A dataset is made up of series things. One, a dataset is made up of fields, which is always set in columns. Like for example, this is our dataset. We have the first field. We also have this second field. And then it goes on like that, and these are fields. Two, a dataset is made up of records, which is always set in rows. Like for example, this is a record. This is the second record. These are all records. And then three, a dataset is made up of data points. A data point is the intersection of row and column, or you can say the intersection of field and record. Like for example, this is our data point. This is also a data point. This one is also a data point. Each of these intersections are data points. In Excel, we simply call it a cell, but in data, we call it a data point. Now, those series things makes up a dataset. Let's switch our attention now to a proper dataset. What makes a proper dataset? We're going to look at 8 things that we need to check in order for our dataset to be a proper dataset. Number 1, a proper dataset must have field names, and the field names must be on the first row of the dataset. Like we said, this is a field, this one is also a field, this one is also a field. But on the first row of the field, we have the field names. Like the first field here is having a field name which is application number. The second field here is having a field name which is the name. Then we have the gender and then the age. Those are field names. And the field names must be on the first row of the dataset. And then 2, the field names must be formatted in a way that's different from the rest of the records. Like here, we have simply bolded our field names. That one is actually a very common way of formatting your field names. By the way, the field names are also called column headers, so you can call it column headers or field names. 3, a proper dataset must have related records on subsequent rows. Like for example, this first record here must be related. Application number U1 must be for Chong Nelson, and the age 35 must also be for Chong Nelson. So all these records must be related. The same applies to this second record and the rest of the records. You cannot pick the age of Kule Peter and then you put it on the row of the records for Chong Nelson. That will make the records not to be related. So a proper dataset must have related records on subsequent rows. 4, there must be no empty row or rows in the middle of your dataset. Now let's scroll down and we see what we mean by that. Now this is the dataset and we have this entire row which is empty. That empty row will divide your dataset into 2 and make that analysis very difficult. Like for example, if I want to highlight this dataset, I'm going to click. Then when I control A, you can see only the top part of the dataset is highlighted. The downer part is actually not highlighted. So because of this empty row, this dataset is treated as if there are 2 different datasets. So if you want to highlight this dataset, you need to highlight it just manually like this, which is very difficult if the dataset is big. So you need to make sure that you don't have such empty row in the middle of your dataset. 5, you must also not have empty column or columns in the middle of your dataset. So let's scroll down and we see that. Now here we have this dataset and also we have this empty column in the middle of our dataset. That empty column is also separating our dataset into 2. If we try to do the same thing, click, and then when I highlight Control A, only part of the dataset is being highlighted. This other part is not being highlighted. So you must also not have empty column or columns in the middle of your dataset. 6, you should also have empty cells all around your table. Let's first scroll up a bit. we have this data set here, and if you check very well, we have empty cells all around the data set. These are all empty cells, as you can see. So all these cells you are seeing here are empty cells, or your data set can touch the row names or the column names. Like ours here is touching the row names. There's actually no problem with that, but you must not have anything touching your data set. Let me first Control Z to undo the yellow fields. When, for example, I come here, click, and then I type something there, like for example, HM&S. When I hit enter, now this text here, which is touching our data set, is now considered by Excel as part of our data set. Actually, we can even confirm that when I come here, then click, then when I try to highlight this data set using Control A, you can see even this column is being highlighted because this text is touching our data set and Excel is considering it as part of our data set. So you must have empty cells all around your data set. When I click here, then delete, click here, then try to highlight again, Control A, you can see this time around, this column is not being highlighted. So having those empty cells all around your data set is actually very important. Now 7, if your data set is having a primary key, the primary key must be put on the first column of your data set. That means the first field must be the primary key. Now what is a primary key? A primary key is a field that uniquely identifies each record in your data set. Like for example, let me first come to the name field here. We have Kulepita here and we also have Kulepita here. Since we have two Kulepita on the same field, that one cannot be a primary key. But when we come to the field application number, each of this application number is appearing only once, and each of them is uniquely identifying records on this data set here. So if your data set is having a primary key, that primary key must be put on the first field or first column of your data set. Now lastly, point number 8, make sure you avoid having empty data points on your data set. Let's scroll down and we see that we have this data set here, but when you check the edge field, we have this empty data point. Now when you don't have very many empty data points, sometimes it's okay, it doesn't cause for you any problem, but sometimes it can cause for you errors. It depends on the type of analysis you are doing. Like for example, if you are doing forecasting, you need to prevent those empty data points as much as you can because it can lead to biased results. Now apart from that, let's see one problem that you can get when you have those empty data points. Like for example, if we want to get the average age, we know that to get the average, you need to get the sum and then we divide it by the count. So let's do that. I'm going to click on this cell and do equals to sum. When I see it highlighted in blue, I'm going to hit tab to select it. I'm simply going to highlight my age like this. And when I hit enter, we can see that the total sum of age is 374. Let's also count the total number of records in this data set. I'm going to do equals to count. Now the count function counts numbers only. Then the count A function counts non-empty cells. Now let's use the count A function. I'm going to hit tab to select it. Since we have empty data point on the age field and the count A function count non-empty cells, let's highlight the gender field. So I'm going to highlight the gender field like this. And when I hit enter, you can see we have 11 records on this data set. So let's get the average. I'm going to do equals to the sum, which is this one, click. Then you divide it by the count, which is this one, click. And when I hit enter, you can see it's telling us that the average age is 34. Now let's use the inbuilt average function, then we see what we will get. I'm going to click on this cell and do equals to average. When I see it highlighted in blue, I'm going to hit tab to select it. Then I'm going to highlight the age field like this. When I hit enter, you can see we are getting two different averages. That's because the average function is programmed to ignore text and also to ignore empty cells. So it's only working with numbers. So that means instead of dividing our sum by the total number of records, which is 11, it's actually dividing it by 10 only. It's actually ignoring this empty cell and only counting 10 numbers. Let's prove that. I'm going to click here and do equals to the sum, which is this one, divide by, this time around let's divide it by 10. And when I hit enter, you can see we are now getting the same average as the average function. So those are the points that you need to check to make sure that your dataset is a proper dataset. Yeah, that is it for this particular video. If you haven't subscribed, please do subscribe, and if you found this video interesting, give it a like and then you share it with your friends. This is a video where we talked about different ways how you can filter your data in Excel. You can also see the importance of having a proper dataset on that video. So you can click on it, then you go and watch it. Until next video, HM&S video number 60 series, then we meet again. Thank you.